This episode is brought to you by Heyday. Feeling stressed? Take a moment for yourself with Heyday. Stroll through rows of golden wheat, tend to cute barnyard animals, and discover the joys of a digital farm retreat. You don't have to hop in a car or catch a plane. Escape to the farm at the tap of a finger. With Heyday, you're not just tending to a farm, you're tending to yourself. Heyday. Search Heyday, that's Hay space DAY, in your favorite app store. Heyday is a free-to-play mobile game and offers optional in-app purchases and random rewards.
Hilton brings you new ways to stay. With experiences that let you capture the glory days. Introducing the Graduate Hotels. Each inspired by local college towns, these stays are always original and never boring. Get in touch with traditions all across the country and enjoy a stay that's a class above the rest. Book at Graduate Hotels with Hilton Honors Points at Hilton.com. It's a win-win. Hilton, for the stay.
Welcome to another Britflix.com podcast. My guest today is Susan Ferris, CEO of the Bohemia Group. The Bohemia Group has been a driving force in the entertainment industry since inception in 92 and now boasts a top-notch management division, talent and literary, a leading production company, and a highly respectable music division. Their roster includes actors, writers, directors, producers, influencers, musicians, and bands from all over the world, with offices located in LA, New York, London, Auckland, Berlin, Seoul, Singapore, my house, Karachi. They have a truly global reach. Welcome to the show, Susan.
Thank you very much. Really good to be here from LA. So,
for the podcast, we're going to focus on the management division of Bohemia Group with this conversation, just to shed some light on what managers do, I suppose, would be the best way to describe it, if we can, and what makes them an important role within the entertainment industry. And then we'll go on to 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. That sound like what you signed up for?
It sounds like what I signed up for.
Let's start with maybe a bit of definition and comparable. So a manager and an agent seem similar from the outside looking in, but there must be a difference because the two coexist. So how would you describe the role of manager, and how does it differ from an agent? And or what are the similarities, if any?
So where to start? Managers, actually, let me back up. Agents really, first and foremost, they're there to smile and dial and pitch and negotiate. And hopefully, if they're good agents, you got to think of them. I used to say you got to think of them like the used car salesman, but that's not really fair. You really do have to think of them as sort of the sales guy.
Okay.
Managers, although we also do all that, our job, first and foremost, is, I believe, we're strategists. We're really there for the bigger picture. You'll probably have your manager a lot longer than you'll have your agent.
Got you.
Where, your mother, your father, your therapist, your bail bondsman, your priest, we really are there to go on that journey from the inside. Mm. So yeah, there's a lot of similarities, and yes, the lines have blurred a lot over the years. Without getting too technical with all the legal stuff that actually goes on here in the United States.
Yeah.
But, if you stay in your lane, then and the agent stays in their lane and you all work together, then you've actually got a phenomenal team.
From the sort of talent or the literary talent's point of view, when's the right time that you should be looking for a manager?
So for literary, for anybody.
Yeah, well, let's say for a writer, if you're a screenwriter, then let's say a screenwriter and then we'll say as an actor if they're different. If you're is it if we do those two distinct roles?
As a writer, chances are you're probably going to want a manager first, because really a lit agent is going to play a little bit of a different role in that that really is that more of a salesperson. A lot of agents aren't probably going to look at you unless you've sold something or managers. We're there more than this is with writers specifically.
Yeah.
We really are there more to nurture. To sort of cut forward. This is part of the reason why I started a production company. But we're there to nurture. Maybe you've got somebody in your world, in your department at a management company that understands writing and can help wherever it needs to be. And then once there's a sale or once there's something that's clearly big going on, then to me that's a right time to either bring on an agent or even better a lawyer who handles this.
Okay. So in terms of that step before, then, when's the right time for the writer to be finding a manager?
It's just kind of funny because I get this a lot. We're like, oh, I think I need a manager. I think I need an agent. Well, what'd you do? Well, I wrote a script. Okay. And you've done what with it? So, I think everybody's got a script. Everybody's got an idea. Everybody's got I think that probably if you think you need a manager, chances are you probably don't.
Okay.
It's when you get to that point in your world where it's like, oh shit, I can't actually handle this anymore. I actually need somebody to help me. That's probably when you need a manager or an agent to step in.
And obviously, actor being a very different role to a writer. What's the right time for an actor then? How does that? Because obviously, is that about
So with actors, it's a little different in that, I'm always, and I speak to a lot of actors.
Yeah.
A lot of times it's like, look, try and give me something to manage with an actor, Now, there are some actors, especially if they're, let's say if they're young, like, really young, really developmental, that's a little different story with management because then we actually get to mold them a little bit. As you get older, you're an adult and you've got nothing on your resume and you've got nothing that, you just want somebody to help you out. Then find an agent whose specialty sort of is, throwing it against the wall and getting you in rooms and building your resume so that then you can come to a manager and then let them sort of manage the world that you're about to create. So, but if you've come to me and you don't have an agent and I've decided to take you on, chances are I'm also going to find you an agent. Okay.
So that becomes part of the strategy then, as part of the development of the career. Okay, cool.
Yeah.
So in terms of that then, so from a management point of view, how are you finding talent, or does talent find you?
So it's a little bit of both.
Okay.
We've been around a long time, so it's a little different. Although back sort of in the old days, before there was email, I probably got, I don't know, a few hundred headshots mailed to me a week.
Really?
Now it's not as much, but now now for me it's more like references and because the client list has grown and the type of actor is a little different. If you really don't have anything on your resume, you better be 15 years old and just starting out.
Okay.
So but that's just me. Managers go to showcases and they go to plays and they look. I personally don't look. Now I'm only talking about me, Susan.
Of course, yeah. So what you're saying, though, there are other managers that are actively sort of look at trying to be a talent spotter as much as anything else.
Sure, especially newer managers who need to build their roster.
Yeah. I mean, I've heard it's possible. I mean, I was lucky enough in the early days of the podcast. I had Jack Thorne on, who's the writer of like the big hit on Netflix at the moment, Adolescence, and he was saying that he got spotted as a writer by a couple of Channel 4 producers who saw a play he put on, that was about a really serious subject, and they could see something in his writing that meant he was applicable to that show. I mean, that was, he didn't go to a job board and find a vacancy.
No, but I have to tell you, last week, I went to I flew to Chicago and to go see one of my clients in a play.
Yeah.
My client was great. And everybody in the show was great.
Mm-hmm.
There was one kid I could not take my eyes off the entire time. The entire time. I'm like watching everybody. I'm watching my client. I'm watching the whole show. And I was so mesmerized by this one kid. I was like, holy shit, who's this kid?
Yeah.
Turns out actually he's an English actor, mostly musician from the UK. Which was kind of funny because it was a show about the Kinks. But it was, so it does happen. And when it happens, it's kind of cool because you're like, oh, am I just about to discover something amazing?
Yeah.
You know,
That's impressive that you can be in industry so long and yet still you can be caught out by just sheer talent.
And it's nothing gets me more excited.
Yeah.
You know, doesn't happen very often.
I'm sure but that's probably why it works when it does. If it happened every day, we'd be going mad, I think.
That's why I don't go out.
Right then. If we flip it around the other way, in terms of the clients that you manage, what makes a good client? Like, obviously, Rip Roaring success never hurts anyone. But before all that can happen, what should or can a client be doing to get the best out of their manager and be most helpful to their manager?
So I think probably one of the biggest, most important things any client can do, I don't care if you're an actor, a writer, a director, a musician, I don't care.
Yeah.
Is communicate.
Okay.
I have clients that say there's one thing that okay, in all fairness, I have a couple of pet peeves and whatever, but there is a big pet peeve I have and I'm really loud about it.
Go on.
When a client says to me, I didn't want to bother you. That is literally my job for you to bother me. So communication for me is the most important thing that a client can do. If I don't know what's going on in your life, then I can't be the kind of manager that I need to be. So, I think that, and again, I can only really speak from my own experience because I know there are managers out there who are like, I don't care what's going on.
Yeah.
I'm available 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. That's the job I signed up for.
Amazing.
So, I also, if you're an actor and I say to you, this is what you need, A, B, C, whatever that is, I don't expect to come back a month later and be like, so you haven't done any of these. Oh, well. So, if you're not in the game, then I'm not going to be in the game. I got bigger fish to fry. So
in that sense, then, from a manager's point of view, there are sort of you almost like set tasks, as it were, like a manager to an employee, almost like.
Absolutely, we're in this together. If I'm going on the trip, I have my career.
Yeah,
I have my career.
Right.
I'm here to take your career to another place. If you're here, my job is to get you here. And then when you're there, my job is to get, and I'm sure people are like, what does she mean? Different up the stairs, different levels. And if you're like, it's like, all right, then why are you here? Why are you wasting my time? There are a lot of people out there that, really want to do this.
Brilliant. Well, thanks for sharing that insight into the role of manager. That was really interesting. And if we can, we'll now talk about 3 films that have impacted everything in your adult life. You ready for this?
I'm ready.
Good. For your first choice, we have a pair of films from 72 and 74. The first in this pairing has the iconic ad-lib, leave the gun, take the cannelloni. And Stanley Kubrick thought this film was the best cast ever and could be the best movie ever made. The second film saw Robert De Niro spending 4 months learning Sicilian because his character spoke entirely in Sicilian. I am indeed talking about Francis Ford Coppola's great pair of movies, Godfather and Godfather Part 2. So tell us, Susan, how does this film end up having an impact on you and why so memorable?
really? Why so memorable? Really? I cannot be the only person who thinks this is probably the most. These are two movies that anytime they come on, if I'm like, because obviously I own them, I will just stop what I'm doing. But this is a movie I can, from first line to the end, just, you never want to see this movie with me because people are like, shut up. Just shut up. Yeah, this had a big impact on me, especially when I was a kid, because I saw it when I was a kid.
So what was it that had such impact on you?
That's a good question. I think for me it was like I understood it.
Okay,
which is kind of funny if you think about that. I grew up where I grew up, and not even remotely. It's not even close. But these two movies, and then as I got older,
I
think one of my favorite books back then was, and still is, The Art of War. All of a sudden, it just sort of started to make sense. They're good rules to live by. All the rules, and
What rules would they be? What rules would they be that we're living by that we learned from Godfather?
Do I really need to discuss what the rules are?
Remind me.
Yeah, you don't ever take sides against the family.
Okay.
You do keep your enemies closer. And quite honestly, I'm a good shot, and that probably had everything to do with, The Godfather.
Is this a good strategy for Hollywood, full stop? Is that what you're saying?
What? Maybe. Yeah, it's funny because when they made, I don't know if you remember, a few years ago, they made sort of the making of The Godfather.
Yeah.
It was, but it was all actors, and it was, and I had a client in it, and it was just like, oh, this is cool. It was a 5, 10 part, 8 part series. And it was, and I'm not going to tell you who my client was, but I will tell you he was one of the leads. And it was just like, okay, this is all right. I'm done. I've put clients on everything I wanted. I've hit the beauty of everything that I do, because now I've got somebody who's done this. Actually, turned out I didn't think it was that great, but it was a lot of fun. I had read the list, and I read Mario Puzo when I was a kid. It just is, to me, The Godfather really is. It's just a good way to. I can't. It's funny because it really is. It really did sort of impact how, when I started this company, I was,
I mean, are you a Godfather 1 or Godfather 2? Because famously, Godfather 2 is one of the rare instances that people often consider the sequel better than the first. What camp are you in?
Apples and oranges.
Okay.
I absolutely, to me, they are apples and oranges. 1 is its own beautiful thing, and 2 is its own beautiful thing. It really, truly is. There is, one is not, to me, one is not better than the other. And I will fight to the death about that.
And given you've watched it so much, then what scene from either movies is one that stands out for you? If when you think of the film, what is the first scene that comes to mind for you?
Probably the first scene that comes to mind is Michael shooting everybody in the restaurant.
And there's the 5 minutes.
There you go.
Perfectly timed, Susan. Perfectly timed. For your second choice, the actors are all competent musicians and play on the soundtrack. After the film opened, several people told the director that they loved the film, but that he should have chosen a more well-known band for his documentary, which I think is hilarious. In 2002, Library of Congress deemed the movie culturally, historically significant and selected it for preservation in the United States Film Registry. I'm talking about Rob Reiner's rock mockumentary, a genre-defining movie, no less, I think. This is Spinal Tap, starring Michael McKean, Christopher Guest, Harry Shearer, who, together with Rob, got $10,000 to write the script, but instead they wrote a 20-minute version to demonstrate how they would improvise. And even though still several scenes that they did from that demo ended up in the movie. I am indeed talking about This Is Spinal Tap. So tell us, where does this fit in with your film watching life?
So I something a little bit about my history. I come from the world of rock and roll.
Okay.
And was, entrenched in rock and roll in the 80s. But interestingly enough, as when I was younger, which is sort of ironic since I'm wearing a Jam t-shirt right now, I refused to wear band t-shirts.
Okay.
Just flat out, there's only one band t-shirt I had back in the early 80s. I still own the t-shirt.
And what's that?
And that's my Spinal Tap t-shirt. It says Spinal Tap on the front, and it's got all of the drummers' gravestones on the back. It's the only, yeah. So for me, this is a movie. Of course, being in rock and roll at the time, it was like, oh my God, this is my life right now.
How accurate did it seem? How accurate did it seem when you watched it?
How what? Say it again.
How accurate did it seem as someone in rock and roll watching this movie?
Oh, it probably more accurate than everybody realizes. I've been really lucky that I've actually gotten to see Spinal Tap live.
Okay.
In the beginning, and which is what was a lot of fun about that is, there's another band that would open up for Spinal Tap called The Mighty Wind, which is also Christopher Guest, Michael McKean, and Harry Shearer.
Yeah.
Playing, folk music. There are certainly parts of Spinal Tap that are exaggerated, and you're like, it goes to 11, all that sort of stuff, and the little, the dwarves and the Stonehenge, and that was all very funny. But then you've got, Bobby Fleckman, which was like, oh shit, I know people like this. So it was like a lot of fun. It was like watching. It was like, oh, okay, let's have some fun with what's going on in our lives right now. And brilliant. I mean, it was absolutely brilliant.
I mean, it's funny you say that, because Ozzy Osbourne said when he watched it, he was the only one not laughing because he thought it was so accurate. And yeah. And the Edge from U2 said he cried when he watched it rather than laughed, because it kind of, I mean, I guess it obviously rock and roll is, I mean, I've managed a band myself in the early noughties. I've not to any stadium level, but I've certainly experienced major labels and all that kind of stuff. And the absurdity of it all makes no sense, but it obviously seems to move forward all the time.
It's more spot on than, but because in the part of rock and roll that I come from, I was always in the management part. I was always on the other side. Yeah. So, I did enjoy a laugh or two, but yeah, no, it's like, oh yeah, well, I know what that's like.
What can you say? What bands did you used to work with? What part of rock and roll was you involved with?
Well, I was at A&M.
Okay.
In the late 80s, so all the bands that went through there, which back when I was there would have included Soundgarden, Janet Jackson.
Oh my word!
Extreme, Tora. And I left A&M when it was bought out, and then I went to work for a band called Slayer for 2 years.
No.
And yeah.
Rain in Blood is, to me, is like Let It Be of thrash metal.
Oh my God.
It's just the perfect record. It's just the perfect record.
It was a great record. But I was there during the Clash of the Titans. There you go.
Go on. No, sorry, finish that story.
Oh, during the Clash of the Titans and Seasons in the Abyss. I was there for those 2 years.
Oh, Seasons in the Abyss, I bought on tape because I couldn't wait to get home so I could listen to it on my Walkman on the way home rather than buy it on record. It was, I was very excited. That is a favourite band of mine by a long chalk. Indeed. Thank you for sharing that. Right then.
Yeah.
For your final choice, this one bombed when it released in 1975, which is remarkable to think. And right around the same time, midnight screenings had become popular in cinemas in the US. And word of mouth began to spread to the midnight movie audiences that this was the movie to see. It began showing and became so popular, it has been showing in theatres ever since. Can you believe that? Making it the longest theatrical run in history. I mean, where I used to live in London, there's a cinema that still does sing-alongs every week to this film. The story is of a newly engaged couple, Susan Sarandon and Barry Bostwick, and they break down an isolated area and seek shelter at the bizarre residence at Dr. Frankfurter, played by the utterly camp delight Tim Curry. His movie debut, I might add as well, which is remarkable. Directed by Jim Sharman, written by Richard O'Brien. I'm talking about the Rocky Horror Picture Show. So tell us, where are you finding this movie, or how does it find you?
So, wow, I'm about to just sort of lay it out on the line. Back in the 80s, when I was a young junkie, I don't even know how else to say that, this was what we did. I've probably seen this movie 125 times.
So where would you be watching it in the 80s? What place would be showing it that you'd all be hanging out to watch it?
Oh, midnight showings. There was a theater, and it was sort of like we go out, we party. Oh wait, it's time to go see Rocky Horror Picture Show. We watch it, we go party some more. Yeah, I mean, it was sort of like it was a thing. It was crazy. That movie was like, oh, okay, this is okay. It really sort of shifted. It allowed me sort of some freedom that I didn't realize I didn't have.
Okay, in what sense?
That sounds weird.
In what sense?
It was weird. It was just sort of like, oh shit, anything's possible. Look at this. These guys are, I don't know if I can actually explain it.
I've had a guest on before who's picked this film as well, and they reckon that Rocky Horror has got its fingers in the origins of punk. You know, as a movement, he believes that it had such an influence. You know, you think of like the BDSM clothing and all that, and how that influenced what Malcolm McLaren and Vivienne Westwood were doing on the. I could actually because he was thinking, you know, that if you think when the musical before the film,
and the music is brilliant. I mean, even now, I will be in my office and I will be like, and I will blast it. People are coming to my office and like, what are you doing? Tim Curry. I mean, he comes down the elevator and you're like, oh, Jesus, this guy became one of my favorite actors after that. And Richard O'Brien, come on, Riff Raff, that guy, he's a genius. He's a genius. I mean, I really think he's a genius.
Can you walk us in the door or through the door, as it were, of the places you would like? One of the places you might have seen the midnight movie at. Do you remember the venue or anything like that?
I couldn't probably remember the name, but it was a movie theater. Gross. There was a few theaters in the theater, but there was always the one that was like was the Rocky Horror one. And small, probably 300 seats, which is small for a theater.
Yeah.
And just filthy. Filthy. And none of us cared.
Yeah.
None of us cared. I mean, it was just a filthy 300 seat, which probably smelled bad at the time, sticky. Because then, of course, we're bringing all our stuff to throw and whatever. But yeah, it's exactly, if you did a movie and you showed a theater it's exactly what you think it was going to look like. It was just gross. I wouldn't walk into this theater today.
Yeah.
I'll be like, oh yeah, no, I'm not touching that. No.
Can you remember the first time you ever saw it?
I did. I do. I was high as a kite.
Really?
High as a kite. And I was mesmerized. I sat.
Finish your thought. Go on.
I sat. I didn't move. I sat in my chair, just mesmerized.
Really?
Yeah. So I had to go back the next night.
Well, look, Susan, that brings us to the end of your 3 films that have impacted everything in your life. Thank you for sharing.
Thank God we weren't talking about music. I've been here all day.
I'm really grateful to get that little story about Slayer in there. That's great. I could not have expected that. And thank you for sharing that insight into what management is and Bohemia Group. And
My pleasure.
It just gives me to say thank you very much for joining us on the Britflix podcast.
Thank you for having me.
Hey there, it's Hugh from Podderation here. If you like today's show, why not have a listen to The Ramble? Ridiculous, irreverent, and sometimes maybe just a little bit raunchy. The Ramble is what you get when you put 2 professionally funny people in a room together and give them license to talk about anything they want underneath the umbrella of nerdy hobbies. We think you'll love it, and if you want to check it out, go to our website at podderation.com.